I like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. It's Netflix time. This movie's called Amandla. It's an hour and 46 minutes long. Spoiler alert, let's just get it. Start off in 1987 in South Africa with these two boys that are brothers. They were just out hunting birds. One's name is Impy, and the younger brother's name is Nico. But before they go back home, they visit a lady that owns this part of the land, and their daughter Elizabeth. Impy and Elizabeth are best friends. Then he goes back home to see his mom, and apparently Impy was actually hunting because today is his birthday. His father comes home and lets him know that Nelson Mandela is about to get out of prison. So apparently it's based on a true story. Well, anyway, Impy has been saving up his money so he can go back to this place called Wazulu when he gets older. Now, we found out from Impy's dad that Elizabeth's mom, her husband is named Mr. Jacob, and they pretty much work for him on his island. So they gotta be on their P's and Q's. At this time, Impy didn't understand the concept of racism, but apparently people with the same color skin as Jacob were actually the ones killing off his tribe of Zulus. So that's a big reason why Impy wants to go back, and he wants to see his uncle. Later on, his dad's cutting up some meat, and he notices Impy and Elizabeth talking in the garden, but really he was just helping her pick up the food that she spilled. His dad gets Impy in their room to cut up some meat, because basically he wants her to stay away from Elizabeth. And he tells them they can't really be friends like that. He doesn't really understand now, but he will eventually. So later on, while Jacob's giving them extra money for their work, he tells them to go play for a little bit because he got some special guests coming to the house. Unfortunately, these guests start fucking with the brothers, and they're very disrespectful. They throwing cow shit on them. Basically being a bunch of assholes. Basically, Elizabeth has to step in and tell him to stop doing that or I'm gonna tell my dad. Then they back off. Later on, Impy's getting the feast ready, and Elizabeth needs him for something. So he tells his brother Nico to get the rest of the stuff real quick, he'll be right back. She wanted to grow up and be a freedom fighter. They end up kissing by the tree, and she gave him a present, which is basically some money, so he can get to Wazulu. Meanwhile, Nico in the background peeping shit. Unfortunately, these three goofballs were behind Nico, and they started picking on him until he told him what's up. And right when he was about to get cut, Nico tells him what he was looking at. He basically snitched on his brother and told him that Impy and Elizabeth were kissing. They're so pissed off at the situation, but they ain't gonna do nothing. They realize they're in Africa and they're definitely outnumbered. So he lets Nico go about his business, and I guarantee he's got some bullshit planned later. Later on, when Impy's going to sleep, he opens up the envelope and he finds out there was some money in there. He puts it with the rest of his stash and goes to sleep. All of a sudden, Dad hears noises at the door and he goes over to it. Basically, he goes out there, there's a bunch of commotion. All we know is that his dad winds up dead as shit. She tells the boys to hop the window and get up out of here. Turns out it was these fuckers at the door, and they want to deal with Impy. Mom ain't snitching, but as a result of that, she ends up getting killed too. Afterwards, they burn the whole house down. They somehow end up fleeing to the city, because the other town they went to was near Johannesburg, I guess. And they basically got to steal to survive. Years later, we see the grown-up Impy still running around the streets. So where's Nico at? Well, here's Nico. He's back at the spot where he's staying at. Impy comes back to the same spot, stashing his cheese. So basically, he's been a criminal all his life, but he's getting money together for his girl and his baby that's coming on the way. Meanwhile, the money that Nico's been getting, he's been studying up so he could become a policeman. And he's finally about to get himself into the academy. In his mind, he basically has one more job to do, and then he's finally going to head up to Wazulu. But he doesn't want to go until the baby's born. So Nico's finally in training to be a police officer, and Impy finally gets to his girl, who's named Alina, and she's very much pregnant. So he wasn't lying about that. Who's this little kid running back in the house? Well, apparently this is the kid's mom, and Impy still owes her money because she need rent and all that shit. Now, Impy told his brother Nico that throughout all this time he was doing mining jobs, but that turns out to be some bullshit because these random guys end up following him from where he was coming from, and then they snatch him up and take him to their leader. Their leader is this bad guy by the name of Shaka. He knows everything about Impy, where he came from, that he has a wife and a daughter on the way, that his parents died. He pretty much knows everything about this guy. Shaka says they were all part of the Zulu clan at one point in time. Basically, he wants Impy to work for him, or else he's threatened to kill his wife and daughter, and they take the rest of his money just in case he tries to run. Basically, now he's in debt to Shaka, and I'm pretty sure he stole from one of his boys before. Probably the reason why they was tailing him in the first place. So when he goes back to the house, the baby's born, and he named her Nomusa right after his mother. He realizes he gotta get out of this mess with Shaka somehow. And here she comes up about something. Yeah, you stole me money, nigga. He had a stash left in the pot, and he gives her half just to get her off of his back. Then Shaka's boys come out of nowhere like, hey man, we got a job. Meet us at about 12 o'clock. So he's riding out with Shaka, and he's gonna get paid well for the job. But I'm gonna tell you right now, this particular job is fucked up. So anyway, Impy goes through the kitchen, he clears out the stash, but Shaka's like, before we leave, I want you to do something. Come in with me. But as he's walking towards the room, he sees a couple dead bodies. They take him in his room and they want Impy to sexually violate this girl that's in there. I'm like, the fuck? Impy's thinking to himself, I'm not doing this shit. But he basically tells him if he doesn't do it, we'll kill you and your family. So he's left with no choice but to do it. The crazy thing is, the girl they're asking him to violate is Elizabeth. What in all of these? Fuck, man. So literally with no choice, he had to do it. I know Alina's asking what's wrong, but it's like, there's no way Impy could tell her this shit. Apparently Nico finds out about the situation, and on top of everything she went through, the other dudes gave her a concussion and shit. Probably caused her brain damage. Mrs. is in the hospital and she's not really getting a whole lot of good news about the situation. The doctor says there's nothing they can really do but just keep her in there. Then Nico comes in and says he'll do anything he can to help. He asked her about Mr. Jacob, but then she said he had died like 4 years ago. She was just so surprised and happy to see him. Meanwhile, a frustrated Impy has no choice but to go see Shaka. And apparently Shaka has another big score settled for him later on. Nico goes back to the village looking for his brother, and this guy directs him on his way, but it turns out he actually worked for Shaka and lets him know police are on his tail. See, the thing is, Shaka thinks that Impy's brother is actually a doctor. That's what Impy told him. But now he knows the cops sniffing around, he's gonna put 2 and 2 together. Impy tells his brother the truth about everything that's been going down. He's gonna find him a way to get bus tickets and sneak his family out of there once and for all. But you gotta hurry up, Shaka and the boys on your trail. Then they somehow get the landlady to watch after the baby again, and Alina. But Shorty starts asking too many questions, and Alina's gotta go do something real quick. After Alina leaves, she gets her son out of the car, and we find out she's been working for Shaka too. What the fuck? And she uses her son as a messenger. Meanwhile, Impy and Nico getting the bus tickets, and it feels like he's saying goodbye to his brother for good. But when he gets back to the police station, something doesn't feel right to him. Meanwhile, you got other police officers patrolling the district. So when Impy gets back to the house, of course there was a fucking ambush. Shaka's like, nigga, you tried to leave and you got the cops on me? The fuck wrong with you? Yeah, I know your brother's a cop. He's like, look, man, I'll give you whatever money you need. Just leave our peoples alone. Then Alina tells him something she said earlier. Earlier, she said something to her about her hands getting tired. She needs to be doing work or whatever like that. But when she said all that, she was by the furnace, indicating to Impy that that's where the baby is. Right after that, Shaka ends up killing her. God damn, man. Then Impy goes berserk, knocking niggas out, takes the money and run before Shaka can get up. He gets the baby out the furnace and dips out. Shaka's doing a lot of shooting that alerts the cops in the area. Meanwhile, we see a blue van, and we see that Nico ended up coming back. So you know he's about to check and see if his brother's good. Impy ends up going to this guy's house, and he asks the lady there if he could watch his baby so she can start a new life. He leaves her the bus ticket and some money, hopefully making sure she can get to Wazulu. And he says his uncle should be there. I got a bad feeling about this. Nico goes back to the house and finds Alina dead, so he knows some shit done jumped off. Impy goes back to Shaka's hideout, ends up done dealing his boys, leaving them dead as shit. He finished them niggas. But as he's leaving out, Nico's there, they face to face. Shaka comes out the blue, they got guns drawn. Nico's pointing at Shaka, Shaka's pointing at Impy. And what's gonna happen here? Eyes closing. What's going on? Oh man. Shaka's dead as shit, Impy's lying on the ground, and unfortunately, he died right then and there too. Then we find out Elizabeth died in the hospital. Damn. And the police got Nico surrounded, but instead of Nico letting them know that he's a policeman too, he turns around with the gun like he's about to start shooting back, and then they done deal dead him too. What the fuck? Why, Nico? Is the metaphor you just wanted to be with your brother? All I have to say to all that is, damn. I'm not even gonna lie to you, it was a very depressing movie. But because they brought up Nelson Mandela's name, I'm thinking this story might be based on historical facts. Mandela on Netflix. Check it out. Like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. Look, these y'all, these best. Big. You got that slogan.